Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of a Starfield tutorial. Is this right? So I recently put out a video all about starship building, if you want to check that out. But today we're going to be talking about outposts. So I want to talk about Starfield's outposts. First off, let me give you a quick tip. If your ship is not landing on the actual landing pad, which mine never does, one of the easiest ways to pull your ship to the landing pad is to go to E, go to View and Modify Ships, and then go to Upgrade Ship, and then exit out of Upgrade Ship. And when you exit out of Upgrade Ship, your ship will just magically appear on the landing pad. You're welcome. I do not know how to make it appear on the landing pad. I'm sorry about that. Now, if you want to build an outpost, you can build an outpost basically just about anywhere. It just depends on your skill levels, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically what you want to do is pull up your scanner, like so, with the F key, or if you're on a console, whatever your scanner button is. And then you're going to want to press the, down at the bottom, you see where it says Outpost. So you're going to press R, which is going to go to Outpost. And then you're going to have to put down the actual, Outpost beacon. The Outpost beacon is basically your claim to the outpost. My Outpost beacon is right here. If you want to rename your outpost, you can go to the Outpost beacon and you can press R, which will bring up the rename, and mine is currently named Dujankery. Also, if you'd like to remove your outpost, you can hold down the R button and you can remove an outpost as permanent, and you can remove basically everything on the outpost. This is basically where you control your outpost. However, let's say you just want to build an outpost. Well, what are the requirements for building an outpost, and how could you get better Dujanks? Well, I got tons of Dujanks, right? Well, first off, you can have, I think it's up to 6 or 7, I can't remember, outposts per character. So you get a lot of outposts without having to level up anything. You also have this nifty overhead view, so if you toggle V, you can go into the overhead view, and this gives you more of an upward view of what's going on within your outpost. So if you want to check out everything from this point of view, I definitely recommend this. Now, first things first, you need power for your outpost, and depending on how many modules you have, there's a couple different ways that you can get power. One is wind turbines, and wind turbines only work if there is an atmosphere on the planet, duh. So if you don't have an atmosphere on the planet, the wind turbines will do nothing. There is also solar ways that you can gain power. So there's solar arrays and solar domes and things like this. These will pull in power as long as the planet has sunlight. Some planets don't have sunlight, or they don't rotate, and so things can get kind of hinky, or they rotate really slowly or really fast, and things can get weird. So during the nighttime, there won't be any power to those places, but during the daytime, there will. Another way that you can have them fueled is with reactors, which are usually fueled with helium-3, and once you set up these reactors, you can have a way to basically fill them with helium. There's also reactors that run off of freaking nuclear power, which is really awesome. So these don't require any fuel, because they usually use a nuclear fuel rod or several nuclear fuel rods in their creation. And then we also have these right here, which are even more powerful than the others. And basically what it comes down to is you have multiple ways to power your base. Now, what consumes power? Well, you have a couple different things that consume power. One of which is the actual mining extractors. So, for instance, I have an iron ore vein right here, which is signified by the red, and I can place iron ore mining facilities down here. There's a couple different versions. Because I have my skills high up, I can make the bigger iron extractor, and I can make the even bigger iron extractor, which is the what is this, the Aldumite drilling rig, which is even more powerful than the others. Now, when these extractors mine, they have to go somewhere. So you have to have a place for them to go. You have to have cargo containers. Now, when you start out, you're not going to get access to very large cargo containers. You're going to get access to the little baby cargo containers. These little baby cargo containers that you get access to really don't hold a lot of anything, about 75 weight, which is pretty pathetic. As you can see here, this is the baby one. next to a medium-sized one, which is next to the bigga jigga ligga one, which holds a lot. So the baby one holds 75, the medium one holds 150, and the big boy holds 330 weight, which is a much bigger amount. Now, when you want to attach a mining rig to a box, you have to create a line. So let me see if I can show you this real quick. Let me go ahead and create an iron extractor. Not that I really honestly need any more iron extractors, but let's go ahead and just create an iron extractor real quick. In fact, let me make one of my nice big fancy ones, just because if I can. And there's probably a couple places I could potentially put it. So here we go. There's one spot right here I can throw it. So I'm going to put this one right here. Alright, now that you've created your big giant mining rig, as you can see, I got my big giant mining rig here, which is going to be pulling me in iron ore. It needs to be connected to a box so that it can be actually established as a mining rig, right? Well, you go and press the tab key, which brings you to a different mode. This is the mode that allows you to modify objects. And if you hold your cursor over top of that rig that you just made, you'll notice that it says right here, Create Output Link. So you're going to right-click on it, which is going to have a line. Notice how now I have a line that's going to drag somewhere. I'm going to drag this line to this container right here because this is my main input box. Now, I have created this box specifically for a purpose that allows this box to share all of its loot with all of the other boxes next to it, which means they all can fill up. Basically how this works, and let me see if I can just go ahead and show you this because that's what the point of this entire video is I'm going to go ahead and create some storage boxes. So let's say we create storage box 1, and then we create storage box 2, and we create storage box 3, and we have 3 different storage boxes. Alright, so let's go ahead and remove this link from this new box. We can do this by hovering over the link and holding R to delete the link. We're going to go ahead and attach this to this box right here, right? Well, this box only holds 75, and it's going to fill up really fast. It's not going to be very long before this box is completely full of ore, especially since that's one of our new beefy iron rigs, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to attach this box to the next box in the chain. This means that when this box fills up, it will send its loot to this box. We're going to attach this box to this one. So now we have 75 plus 75, which is 150, right? And then we've got another 75 added onto that. And we can keep doing that until we end up with a rather large amount of loot, right? A large amount of storage space. Now, if we go over there and we take a look at the boxes, you'll notice that there may be iron in one of the boxes, but it will generally be the last box in the chain. So this box right here is going to be the one that contains the iron first. When this box fills up completely and can no longer hold any more iron, then this box will be the next to fill up. And then finally, when this box is full, this one will be the next one to fill up here. And after this one is completely full, the last thing that will fill up will finally be the actual refinery itself. So this right here, these things can actually store a little bit of iron as well. And as you can see right now, this reactor, or this extractor, is currently full because these boxes are all full. So right now, there's no more iron capable of being mined while the boxes are currently full. All of them all of them are currently full, as you can see. Now, should I take some iron out of these boxes for whatever reason, they will obviously start pouring their iron directly in. Now, when you're crafting things in the actual menu, you'll notice that all of these resources are available to you. You notice how it says 5,705 iron up on my monitor, 3,441 aluminum, etc. These are all resources that I have available to me within the Outpost. Now, what about resources that are not in the Outpost? Perhaps resources that are at another facility. So this is where the cargo links come in. This right here is a cargo link, what I'm standing in front of right now. And the cargo link has a couple different ways that it can be utilized. And of course, I'm out of boost here real quick, but I'll get up there. And there are incoming, outgoing containers. And what happens is we have a cargo ship that goes in between two destinations. So if you take a look on here, we have a gold copper mine, AUCU, and water, which is on Nebus in Crix, and it is currently cargo linked, which means that this will haul in that resource to this particular place, and I can set this up. So how do you set this up? Well, you have to go and make another outpost at another place and build another cargo link. And once you are in that other place and you have the other cargo link set up, you are going to set up links between the individual doojanks. So just like we did with the cargo containers, where we link the cargo containers together, notice we have an output link or an incoming link here, which means that everything that the cargo container brings in will go into this container, and then this container then puts it into this one. Right? And then we have this container is going to dump it into the next one, into the next one, into the next one, until they are all full. This allows us to have a steady supply of gold, copper, and water, right? Now, the same goes for this one over here, which is our steady supply of aluminum. This is how we get a massive amount of aluminum, is we have a huge amount of aluminum coming in from these sources, which is going into these chests. So the gold and copper is going into here. The aluminum is going into here. Now over here is a different kind of cargo container. This one is cargo interlink intersystem. So the intersystem cargo links actually work differently than the others, and they allow you to transport objects from a different system, but they do have an additional caveat, and that is that they require a form of fuel to make the trip, because of course they're going between two different solar systems. It's a little bit further away than some of the others, right? Well, you need helium-3 for this. So you need a constant stream of helium-3 to be able to make the trip, right? Well, I have places, like for instance, I've got my mine over here on Jaffa 1, which is in a different system. However, this one is not in a different system. So as long as I am transporting objects between the same system, I don't have to pay a fee. However, once I'm transporting objects between two different systems, I do. However, there are places where you can make helium mines, and you can have helium coming in from another system and use that to fuel everything else. As you can see right now, I have a nearly inexhaustible supply of helium-3 in 600 helium-3 in each container with multiple containers, and I have this set up a specific way so that no matter what, it will fuel my interlink system. So if you look here, I currently have the incoming going toward the containers, which means that I'm getting that particular type of helium-3 added to the containers. But there's also another link right here, which is going toward the fuel container on the actual cargo port, which means that the helium will constantly be added to the fuel of the ship whenever the ship shows up from these containers. So I don't have to ever worry about fuel for the cargo interlink system, which is pretty nice. Another thing that you can do with your outpost is you can add one of these transfer containers. Now, these transfer containers confused the ever-living hell out of me when I first started playing, because they tell you that they allow you to transfer cargo from here to your ship, right? Well, what they don't tell you is that it's kind of a lie. You would think that what it would do is it would allow me to pull from any of these containers, because I have helium in these containers. I have, beryllium and titanium in this container. I've got aluminum in this container. I've got, what is this one? I can't even remember. Copper and gold in this container. I have iron in this container. I've got tons of different manufactured goods in these containers and so forth and so on. So you would think that if I attach this to those containers, that I would be able to access those items. But actually how it works is that the container itself, or the transfer mechanism itself, has its own storage space. And this is what confused the crap out of me when I originally started trying to use it, and I couldn't figure out exactly how they worked. But basically, this container is actually a container. So it has a mass of 260, as you can see right here. And that's all that this thing can hold. It cannot hold more than 260 mass at any given time. Which means that if I go to my ship and I try and pull from my station, it doesn't let me pull from all of the cargo containers in my realm. It only lets me pull with what is currently on the transfer container. Now, if you have multiple transfer containers hooked up to your transfer module, it will pull from multiple containers, but it will only fill up 260 at a time. Which means that in general, this thing is mostly useless. What I would recommend is if you really want to utilize this, your best bet is to keep it unattached. And when you want to use it, like during the time period when you actually want to get use out of it, attach it to whatever you want to attach it to and use it for that, one transfer, and then unattach it later. Because that way it won't have anything on it, and it will only have on it what you want on it at that given time. In other words, if you want iron, you would go into the system and you would attach a connection point between the transfer module and your iron container. So whatever iron container is your main iron container. Then when you go to your ship, for instance, I would have to take out what's in here already, by the way. When you go to your ship, what you'll see is there will be iron in here. It doesn't actually take very long. It actually automatically fills with whatever is currently in the ship. But the problem is that it does take some time. And I've played around with this a couple different ways. And quite honestly, I'm not really sure that it's ever going to be worth using without some kind of mod. Just simply because of the jankiness of how it works. It doesn't let you pull from all the containers that are connected to it. It only lets you pull with what's inside of it. So for instance, if I go into my cargo container right now, and I go over to do Jankery, you'll notice there's currently nothing in it. Because it hasn't pulled from the iron container yet. And it could be because maybe I set it up wrong. Could be 100 different reasons why. But it's just really jankety, and a lot of the times it just doesn't do exactly what you want it to. Half the time you're honestly better off just going like this. Running over and just grabbing your materials and then running back to your ship with like 8,000 iron and putting it on your ship. I may have connected made the connection in the wrong direction though. Hold on, let me redo the connection. So the connection actually should have been from the module to the transfer container, and that might have been why it messed up. The direction of the connection does matter. So you want to make sure that the direction of the connection is actually in the right order. If you're curious if the direction is correct, you can always check, but if the name of the two modules is the same, then you may have to just delete the connection and remake it to be absolutely sure. Alright, so let's go to the do Jankery, and here you can see we have 334 iron. If I pull this 334 iron, and I close the panel, and I open it back up, what you'll notice is there will be another 333 iron. If I pull that and I open the panel, I can do it again and again and again, and I can keep pulling that amount of iron out of the container because that's exactly 260 mass of iron. And every single time that happens, I can continually pull out the exact amount of iron that that container is capable of holding. It's just something that you can do when it comes to the transfer module, but it doesn't really work as amazingly as it should. I really kind of wish it worked a little bit differently than this, and what I mean by that is I just really wish it didn't do what it does, which is only pull a small amount at a time and only the stuff directly from that particular module. It does transfer directly to the ship, thankfully, which is kind of nice. So if you take a look in here, you'll notice that I have all of the iron that I pulled off of the transfer module is now in the ship, 913 iron directly to the ship. Let's go over some more stuff with the outposts. The habitation modules are pretty interesting, and let's talk about some of those. You can choose the height of your habitation modules, specifically by when you create them. So you have to make sure that you're paying attention and don't just like slam the buttons as fast as possible. But you can choose how tall the habitation modules are before you actually place them down. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what I mean. So if you go to the habitation modules and say you choose, for instance, the Outpost airlock, which is the beginning of your journey. If you press E once, it doesn't actually build it. You can adjust the height of your base. So you can make your base very shallow like this, or you can make your base pretty tall. There is a limit to the height, as you can see here. That is about as tall as you could potentially make your base. But that does give you a very tall structure. And there are some reasons why you might want a tall structure. Like, for instance, there are some habitation modules which have 2 levels. Like, for instance, the 4-walled hab can be a double. The hydroponics bay can be pretty large as well. And in general, when you're looking at these particular modules, there are a lot of different ones that you can choose. Some of them are very large, like the large hex hab. Some of them are just simply hallways. You can make hallways in between things so that there's a gap. There's a watchtower also, but it doesn't seem to attach to the actual habitation modules, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. Each one of the habitation modules has different requirements for actual building materials. Like, for instance, the regular 4-walled habs are aluminum and lead. The hydroponics is aluminum and iron with some sealant. The science labs are aluminum and lead. The military habs are made out of titanium and lead. The large hex habs are aluminum and lead, and so forth and so on. A lot of these require sealant, as you can see, a lot of sealant on all of them. And it really just depends on what it is that you're building, what kind of materials you need. There's also multiple different hallways, as you can see here. And once you're inside your actual habitation, there's a lot of different modules. You can make industrial workbenches, cooking stations, pharmaceutical labs, weapon workbenches, spacesuit workbenches, research labs. There's turrets that you could make, which are pretty cool. There's a lot of different turrets. There's tick turrets that go on top of ceilings and stuff like that. There's laser turrets. And they're pretty neat to put down. They all require different modules, of course. And they require power. There is also a lot of little robots that you can put down. So they have different effects on your outpost. For instance, they can increase your resource rate of organic resources, your inorganic resources. They can make sure that your manufacturing is 10% faster. There's logistic robots, which can increase all resource types by 5%. Power management resource bots, which increase the output of all generators. Security robots, which will run around shooting everything for you. And security robot dogs, which also run around shooting everything for you, which are pretty cool. And then, depending on how high your outpost management skill is, or you can actually have a large number of modules that you can place inside your habitation, like navigation consoles, coffee tables, all sorts of really cool things, even refrigerators and wall shelves. as well as a lot of decorations as well. Even some really cool things like model starships, which I think is freaking amazing. I like the model starships. Of course, we can't place these unless we're actually on a habitation module. But for instance, I can put these on top of the station. There's some pretty cool starship models, sculptures, all sorts of crazy stuff that you can decorate your base with. On top of this, there's also some pretty functional items like mannequins that you can put your equipment on. There's a couple different mannequins of different shapes and sizes, different poses and things like that. They're actually pretty cool to put inside your base so you can put all your extra spacesuits on. There's also display cases, helmet display cases, weapon racks, weapon cases, and even backpack stands, all of which can show off some of your items. There's also some other functional pieces like the scan boosters, which will allow you to increase your scan range while you are in the base. So, for instance, I actually have some already. So let's take one of my scan boosters away. I can't remember where my scan boosters are. There's one of them right there. So I've got a smaller scan booster. So let's go ahead and delete this one. And let's delete one of my other scan boosters. And I think I have a third one. There it is. There's my third one. Because you can only have 3 scan boosters at a time. So let's go ahead and build some new scan boosters. Let's build the military grade scan booster. This is a, what is it? Quadruple the range of your hand scanner, right? It says I can build up to 3 of these, so let's go ahead and build one there, and let's put another one on the other side of the base over here. Alright, so now we've got 3 scan boosters to increase the range of our scanners on this planet, which is pretty nice. There's also crew stations which you can add, which go inside of buildings because you can see their little desks. The cargo link and the cargo intersystem link that I was talking about earlier. There is the landing pad with the ship builder that my ship is currently on. There's also the small landing pad. I don't recommend making these for a couple reasons. Number one, the ships won't land on them. And number two, if you make your ship larger than 40 meters, which you can, but I wouldn't recommend it, you can't land a ship larger than 40 meters on the small pads. You can land a ship larger than 40 meters on the big pads. There's also mission boards that you can place inside your base. There's 2 different ones. There's the Constellation mission board and the regular mission board, as well as the self-bounty clearance, which is pretty nice. And eventually you'll get access to the Armillary, which is a quest item. You'll find out what that is later. There's extractors for every type of element. However, the only ones that are going to show up are the element that is inside your current base. So if you don't have that element on the ground inside your current base, you're not going to have access to that particular doojank. And in this particular case, you can see that my needed power has gone red. And this means that I need another power generator. Let's go ahead and put down one of these reactors. I haven't put down any of these reactors yet. I think it could be fun to throw a reactor down. There you go. That should take care of the power requirements. Now, how do you know if you have any resources on the ground? Well, the answer is you want to go into your scanner and you want to look down at the ground. You will see discolored patches when the scanner is active. Now, you will not see these on the ground when the scanner is not active, as you can see. But when the scanner is active, you will see these discolored patches, which represent the iron. So right now we can see there is iron on the ground in this particular area, which means that we can mine iron here, which is why we have our iron mine set up in this particular place. Now, you can have multiple elements intersecting on the same outpost, and when you go to create your outpost, I would recommend that you pay attention to what kind of elements are currently available in your particular zone. If you are in an area that has, for instance, titanium, iron, aluminum, so forth and so on, see if you can find a very good place to place your outpost down that intersects with all of those elements. That way you don't have to have multiple outposts for every single element. However, one of the things that you will notice about my particular setup is that I do. So up here, I have a mine specifically set up for AU, CU, and H2O. So if you look at the scan data, you'll notice that I picked a specific spot where the gold, the uranium, the nickel, the iron, and the water all sort of overlapped with each other, as well as the copper, and I tried to find a spot that had kind of like a little bit of everything. Well, I didn't find one that had everything, but I did find one that had gold and copper and water in the same spot. So I have an outpost here, which is specifically for mining, but it's mining what I'm looking for, right? And when you scan the planets, you're going to be able to see where these resources are. However, you have to have the skill to make this work. So the scanning skill, which is right here, allows you to detect the resources on the planet. And the higher level your scanning skill is, the better map you're going to have of where those resources are. And you're going to be able to find those intersecting points of multiple resources much more easily. One thing I would recommend right off the bat, though, is that if you find yourself a titanium, iron, aluminum, copper, nickel, those are all very important resources. If you don't have access to those, aluminum and iron specifically are very important, but some of the others tend to be very useful as well. And the reason is because when you're going to create things on your base, one of the things that you're going to notice, solar array, aluminum, beryllium, copper, solar dome, aluminum, wind turbine, aluminum, cobalt, nickel, aluminum, tungsten for the fuel generator, right? Aluminum for the power switch, also copper, aluminum for the light post, copper, aluminum, copper, right? Let's go to the boxes, or let's go to the mines, right? So the miners, or the extractors, aluminum, iron, and tungsten, right? So aluminum and iron. Let's go to the boxes, right? Aluminum, iron, aluminum, nickel, aluminum, or copper, tungsten, aluminum, titanium. All of the boxes have requirements, right? But the transfer container, the storage solid container, which is one of the ones you're going to be using the most early on, aluminum and iron. And adaptive frames are made out of aluminum and iron. And every single one of these has adaptive frames in it. Adaptive frame, adaptive frame, adaptive frame. They all require adaptive frames, and they all require tons of aluminum and iron. The largest one, which is the 3x3, this one also requires a massive amount of aluminum and iron, which is 8 aluminum, 10 iron, and 5 adaptive frames, which is 5 iron and 5 aluminum, which is a massive amount of aluminum and iron per container. So as you can see, aluminum and iron are very needed in just about everything that you're creating on the outpost. So I would highly recommend, that you get yourself a very nice aluminum, iron, copper, and titanium, as well as beryllium too. Beryllium tends to, for some reason, seems to be very in demand as well. Once you have like an infinite supply of aluminum and iron, it's pretty easy to start working on most of the rest of the stuff. And if you're curious about what kind of other stuff you might be working on, well, I mean, you can go over and you can take a look inside of the the industrial workstation. And the industrial workstation will give you an idea of what kind of other resources you need. So this is my my little base that I have here. And at the industrial workstation, you can see adaptive frame, aluminum, iron, authentic manifold, iron, nickel, reactive gauge, comm relay, tau grade, Rios, and isocentered magnet, right? Isocentered magnet is cobalt and nickel. We've got mag tank pressure is aluminum and nickel. We got micro cells. Where's the rest of this stuff? We got reactive gauges are aluminum and copper. Tau retrosats are copper and beryllium. Zero wire is copper and silver. Although silver is not ridiculously needed, I have noticed that silver was one of the ones that I probably should have had a mine for a long time ago, but never did. But I didn't need such a massive amount of it that I wasn't like too crazy with it. One of the main issues you're going to have with with your base in general is storage space. Storage space is very finite, and it's very hard to come by. For instance, even containers have a maximum storage of 195, which isn't even really all that much. I think it's actually 150, but I think because I have the payloads, I think it's increasing the storage space of all my containers, even the ones that shouldn't be increasing, like inside the bases. These little storage containers are craftable, but they really don't really hold a lot of space. The base also will not pull from these, which is rather unfortunate. These, which are craftable, the game will pull from. So these right here are the ones that you can craft that hold items. So for instance, these are my warehouses, and they hold things like my reactive gauges, my tau retrostats, my nuclear fuel rods, my microsecond regulators, micropropellants, isocentered magnets, and so forth and so on. Basically everything that I need to build objects, but don't necessarily want to hold on to because they're taking up all my space. Know what I mean? That's kind of like the thing about the storage containers, is that number one, they really don't hold a lot of space. Number two, you need a lot of them to do pretty much anything. And number three, you also have to have one for every type. So for instance, you can't just build one container. You have to build the solid containers for your solid objects like your iron ore, your aluminum ore, your tungsten ore, etc. Then there's the liquid containers, which is used for your H2O and your other various liquids that you're going to come across, like alkalines and acids and things like that you need to store away. There's also the gas containers, which you're going to use for things like your helium-3, your hydrogen, and all the various other gases that you might be mining. And then the warehouses are for your objects that are actually, created, like things that are not just raw elements, but things that are actually something you can actually hold on to, like an adaptive frame or a tau retrostat or a little battery or a comm relay or something. These things come in handy for that kind of stuff. And because they have everything separated out into different categories, it does make things a little bit difficult, but I actually kind of like it in terms of the mining, because that way you know that if you have these containers, they're holding on to your iron ore or your aluminum ore or things like that. What else is there to go over with these outposts? Outpost engineering, and this is kind of important. So let's go to outpost engineering right here. So this gives you access to better modules. There's a lot of better modules that you can get access to, and it basically makes it so that you can finally create things like the larger containers. So instead of being forced to use the little tiny containers, you can make the bigger ones. Better wind turbines and solar panels and things like that. So the one on the left here is the small solar or the wind turbine, and the one on the right is the bigger wind turbine, which produces more electricity. You can also get access to better extractors, more decorations for your house, all sorts of very interesting things like the better reactors. As you can see here, I finally got access to a reactor for my my base. This big old thing right here is a really fancy reactor for powering my station. And it's rather unfortunate to say this, but you will often feel like you kind of wasted your time messing around with some of the lesser stuff within the game until you get a lot of these upgrades to unlock everything. And it's kind of how I felt as well. I really felt like I wasted a lot of time on, working on my outposts, and then later on I had access to better modules and I could make a completely better outpost, and I was often deleting things. And this is something else we need to talk about, which is deleting things. You don't really get anything back for deleting objects. It's rather unfortunate, and I don't understand why exactly you don't get anything back, but you just don't get anything back. Let me see if I can show you exactly what I mean. So if I were to create something, let's use Let's just build a fabricator. It's not a big deal. So the fabricator uses 4 aluminum, which is 3,437. We're going to go ahead and put this down. That brings us to 3,433. I'm going to go ahead and delete this fabricator. And notice we are sitting at 3,437 again. I guess that's maybe because I deleted it quickly enough. Let's go ahead and exit out. So we're going to exit out. Now we're going to go back in. Now we're at 43 again. Let's go back over here and delete this. And no, it's back again. Well, that's interesting because I don't remember it ever refunding me for any of the stuff that I built before, but maybe it has to do with the fact that I just built it. Let's try deleting something that, well, already exists. So I got a fabricator right here, right? So we're going to make 3,437, so let's go ahead and delete this one. Oh, no, it does now. I wonder if they updated the game and changed that, because when I was building my stuff, it would not refund me anything, and now it's actually refunding stuff, which is insane. That makes it a whole lot better. Wow, they got so many cool things here. Multiplex fabricator. These actually tell you what they produce. Aldumine drilling rig, andesite wafer, microsecond regulator, power circuit, rothosite, magnet, substrate, molecular sieve, tacite superconductor, varil treated manifold. As you can see, there's still things that I'm not quite sure of myself. So some of these things require some pretty hefty costs, though. This one requires a drilling rig, a microsecond regulator, aldumite, cesium. Interesting. These require plutonium. Nuclear fuel rods, uranium solvent, semi-metal wafers. And there's really a kind of like an amazing number of things that you could do with these stupid outposts. It's kind of insane. And as I've been playing around with these outposts, spent like many days trying to come up with various ways that I could do things, transferring materials, making sure those materials were properly being sent to where they needed to go. Like, for instance, making sure that the interlinks were sending the materials to the boxes were sending the materials to where they need to go, and so forth and so on. You can even completely automate these places so that if you have it set up correctly, all the materials will come in and will go out to exactly where they need to go. Now, there is a maximum number of cargo interlinks per outpost of 3, which does mean that there may be some problems, you know, getting automation going on certain scales. Like, for instance, you might not be able to have everything coming to the same outpost and leaving the same outpost. But you can potentially have multiple outposts, since each outpost is capable of 3 cargo interlinks. You can have multiple outposts all sending things to a centralized location, and then have that centralized location function as your main, like, supply post or something along those lines, or your cargo depot, or whatever you want to call it. And it actually works out a lot better than I ever thought. These cargo ships are constantly running, as you probably have noticed the entire video. They're constantly running, taking things out and bringing them back. And that's really the cool thing, is they can do both. So you can have them bringing things to an outpost, and you can have them bringing things back from an outpost. Like, for instance, if you need helium-3 distributed around your colonies, you could have one cargo container bringing the helium-3 in, and then you could have another cargo container bringing the helium-3 out to each one of the individual colonies that might necessarily need an interlink, so that you have a constant supply of helium-3 to all the colonies, or all the little outposts that you have, you know, access to. There's definitely something to be said for picking the right location, but also, as you can clearly see, my outpost is a little haphazard in its design. Definitely could be done a little bit better, in my opinion. And I'm sure there's probably some mods out there that make things a hell of a lot better when it comes to outpost design. Trying to think if there's anything else I haven't really covered. And I think I've gone over just about everything with you guys. If there are any questions that you're interested in, feel free to put them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Hopefully in the future we'll see some mods to make the Outpost building even better and even more robust, because I really think that this game, or the Outpost in general, could be absolutely amazing, but right now, a little lacking. I plan to do a formal review, by the way, on this game, probably coming up soon, so do look out for that. It's going to cover a lot of little nitty-gritty details. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we just spend like freaking 45 minutes talking about Outposts. And as always, keep watching.